So 8 years ago, we started our diversity leadership work in New York, and now we've launched this conference here, so very pleased to see this happen. Before I go, I want to kind of go into a little bit about the demographics and how the survey came into being, and then introduce my colleague, Vipul Sheth from Medtronic. Often when I'm up in front of Asian Americans, people want to, people are like, I think some people are wondering, why is there a white guy up here speaking? Well, that's usually, there's a whole diversity landscape behind this, but I'm not going to go into it right now because I have a more fun story to share with all of you. I am from the East Coast, but my family is roots that go all the way back to 1840 in San Francisco. My great-great-grandfather was Darius Ogden Mills. So I'm a Mills. Darius Ogden Mills started the first bank west of Mississippi here in San Francisco in 1840. He didn't invest in the gold rush like everybody else. He basically took care of all the investors who were in the gold rush. And he went on to found a bank you should all know, the Bank of California. So, every time I land in the airport here, I'm landing on what was Mills Field and Millbrae, which you all know about Millbrae. That was the dairy farm. And for some silly reason, my parents sold that dairy farm back in the 1940s. That was probably one of the biggest financial mistakes they made. So, a little story there. So, everybody has on their chart in their desks in front of this executive summary, so pull it forward because this is my prop, and I'm going to just walk you through it a little bit. Some stats. It's the 7th annual study of Asian Pacific Americans at Fortune 500 companies. It is, this year, 2016 survey, 3,300 Asian Pacific American employees participated in the survey. It is an unusual survey in that it looks at the feelings and perceptions of Asian Pacific Americans at companies, surveys them directly, as well as what the diversity offices are doing around developing APA talent, attracting, developing, advancing, retaining. All of this is inside the main report and in this study. Some demographics. If you turn to page, one other thing. If you look at the back, if you're curious to know who's participating, these are the best of the best in this study. The AT&Ts and the Chevrons who are here with us today, and Credit Suisse and Discover and GE, a lot of amazing companies. So if you turn to page 4, which is the infographic, and I better get you guys up to this. This is the infographic. Just a little bit on what is here. 39% East Asian, 38% South Asian descent participating. Southeast Asian descent. 47% have job levels of professional technical. 19% are first level managers, 19% are managers, directors, mid-management. 3% in the C-suite. So that gives you a sense of the perceptions across the board who are being represented. 47% are women, 53% are men. 72% identify as first generation, and 50% are millennials. And one of the other things, and I didn't talk about this personally, in terms of training and development, I grew up as a asthmatic and as a dyslexic. I had serious auditory dyslexia. The only way I was able to succeed today is because I had mentors and champions and sponsors cheerleading my ability to grow as a leader. And so when I see some of these stats, this really comes to heart. 45% say that they're not participating in mentorship. 35% report no coaching available. 41% say sponsorship is unavailable to them. So these are things to be thoughtful of in your own development, and things to be mindful of that you can relate to the folks that are participating in this survey. Okay, so I'm going to just show you another thing. There's a roadmap on page 6. in the survey. And this is something we did new this year. And it's for executive leadership, for managers, and for APA employees. And it's a series of observations and then recommendations and tips from the leading companies as to what each of these groups, what executive leaders, what managers, what APA employees should be thinking about and considering. And so it's something, utilize it as a resource. Let's see. And then on page 13, we did a trend analysis, a 4-year trend analysis of all the companies from 2013 to 2016 and how they did against all the different engagement drivers, from commitment to the APA community, to professional growth, to satisfaction, work-life satisfaction. And across that period, the companies, the favorability ratings grew dramatically across all those areas. And it's something, it tells you something. So the companies that are participating in the survey are leveraging the data powerfully, and they're using it to good effect. And to tell us more about what they're doing is Vipul Sheth with Medtronic.
Well, thank you, David. And I'm going to stand here, I guess. So first, let me give you some perspective, before I go into our experience. How many of you know about Medtronic? Raise your hand. Wow, you're more popular than I thought. Okay, so Medtronic is the largest medical device company in the world. Annual revenue, $30 billion. We've got 95 manufacturing facilities, 95,000 employees around the world. And let's see. Half of the employees are based in the US. Now, guess how many Asian vice president females do we have in the company? So 95,000 employees globally, half of them are based in the US. Make a guess. How many VP Asian females in Medtronic, based in US? 5. Anybody else? Okay, the correct answer is 2, and 1 just joined last week, so we had 1, okay? Let me share with you another statistic. In the US, 1 in 5 patients today, so we are in the healthcare industry, so 1 in 5 patients today is seen by an Asian physician, physician of Asian descent. 1 in 7 Indian descent physician. If you look at medical schools, I'll just give you a quick statistic. My son just started medical school at USC, 186 students in the class, and I was at his white coat ceremony. I just counted the number of Asian names, 64 out of 100 and some 60 were Asian. So if you look at the future of the healthcare industry in the US, today it is run by Asians, and is more so in the future. Now, having said that, what % of sales reps in the US at Medtronic are of Asian descent? Make a guess. 2.5%. Okay, now, that's pretty interesting, right? If you have 20 to 25 to 30% of the physicians are of Asian descent, if you look at Medtronic's customer-facing employees, very small %. Now, some of it is, we have to take the blame because, as Asians, we want to be physicians and lawyers and Wall Street analysts, and nobody grows up. Have you ever told your kid, when you grow up, I want you to be a sales rep? Nobody says that, right? So anyway, so that's a little bit of a perspective. Now, our CEO, Omar Ishraq, is of Bangladeshi descent. So he's a Southeast Asian. When he came from GE and when he came to Medtronic, he's obviously a very forward thinker in terms of diversity. He started the Asian network in GE, so he came in with a lot of experience. When he came into Medtronic, he started looking at the numbers, right? So in US, 7% of the population approximately is Asian. In Medtronic, we are a technology company, so when you look at the Asian employees in Medtronic, we have 14%. So pretty good compared to the general population. But as you go higher to managers, directors, VPs, executive committee, board of directors, very few Asians, and that's true for Hispanics and women and African Americans. So what he did was he started 4 networks. As you can see, Women's Network, African Descent Network, Asian Descent Network, and Hispanic Descent Network. And the way he interacts with each of these networks is like a business review. Every quarter we have a business review with Omar and the head of HR. And turns out that I am the leader of the Asian network. And as you can see, there's a number of leaders from Medtronic, in the U.S., from different business units, different parts of the country that are on this leadership team. So our aim, Asian impact at Medtronic is how we have branded ourselves. And we have three main objectives: accelerating Asians into leadership at all levels, inspiring a confident and visible Asian community, and then Medtronic's outreach to Asia. So we've got a lot of employees in the US, Asian employees, who want to kind of work in their home countries like China, Korea, India, but they don't want to move there. They're engineers, they're regulatory affairs people, and they want to participate in the growth in those countries. So these are our three main objectives. Now, Omar said, okay, well, you as you go up higher in the organization, you see fewer Asians. The AIM team is responsible to figure out what's happening, why it is that, and you come up with the solutions. So we said, well, how do we do that? So one of the organizations that obviously came to mind is Asia Society. Well, Asia Society, they are the group of experts, and so is Ascend and other organizations. But as you can see that we have partnerships with many organizations, Asia Society being one of them. What you see here is the picture of us winning an award. This was taken in New York City. We have participated for the last few years. My slides seem to be, okay. So let me show you this. So we have participated in the survey for over 3 years. And what we have won is that little frame, right? And I call it the Walmart frame. Maybe it's more expensive, but our aspiration is glassware. What we want is we want Medtronic to be the best company for Asian employees. When we go in for college recruiting, we want, Asian, descent students to come up and say, well, I want to work at Medtronic because it's the best company for Asian employees. So how do we get there? And I think what the survey has done for us really, so this is an example, well, this is the survey results for Medtronic from last year. You see Medtronic has more red than the award-winning companies and even the general kind of responses from other companies. So we have work to do. What the survey does for us really is, the questions in the survey are really fantastic because that gives you a framework for what you need to do to become the best company for Asian employees. So what I'll tell you is that, based on this, just reading answering the questions in the survey, it gave us a good framework for what we need to do to be the best company for Asian employees. And this, you see the best practice companies, what they do, and we have actually implemented some of these best practices now into Medtronic through our AIM network. We have got differentiated training for Asian employees, at all leadership levels. We have coaching and mentoring portals for Asian employees. So employees who are looking for a coach or a mentor, we have created a portal where they can look up, mentors and coaches and kind of, marry them up. So this was an opportunity for Asian employees who felt like, they valued a mentor or coach, but they didn't know how to get one. So we created that portal. We have created a portal for employees who are interested in doing projects in Asia. So what Asia Society, the survey did for us, it gave us a framework. And with that framework and looking at the best-in-class companies, we have created programs within Medtronic. And I think that's probably it. So, we've got several, work streams that we have created that we sponsor and champion within Medtronic, and our survey results are getting better. But what we hope is as we participate in the next year's survey that, we'll get better and at some point we'll get the glassware. Yeah.
Thank you, Vipul. Yeah.
The impetus that had the company focus on Asians? Because usually Asian American employees are kind of silent minority, and
Well,
There's not much focus.
yeah, and I think one of the reasons is two big reasons which are of strategic importance to Medtronic. One is if what I mentioned, if you look at the customer base of Medtronic, it's 25% of the physicians in the US are of Asian descent. And if you look at the medical schools, it's even, I think the future is going to be even, more focused on Asian. So if our customer base is 25%, then and if you look at the growth, like many companies, right, the growth is in China, in India, and we need to understand those markets very well. And so those were the two big business reasons. And in general, I think we all have heard that the more diverse your leadership team is, the better decisions you make, because there are more diversity in your thought process, and those companies do better. So those are the three big reasons. Yes, there's another question.
What percentage of the Fortune 500 companies participate in this survey?
There is, right now, it's a small survey. There's 24 companies participating at the time, and it's growing.
So would that bias the results? I mean, if you have a dozen companies out of 500 participating, I would think those are the dozen companies that have expressed or are acting on their expressed interests of making their Asian American employees more comfortable. So the results would be more favorable toward Asian Americans than perhaps if you surveyed all 500 companies.
Yeah, there's so the survey is it's the companies participating, of course. So if you're not participating, it's a way for us to collect the data so everybody can start sharing what they're doing powerfully, and the survey needs to grow. And so, yes, there'll be the perspectives from the companies that are in the survey, not across all of America. That is correct. Yeah.
So how many companies here haven't participated in the survey? Raise your hand. Have not participated in the survey. Okay, so here's the opportunity. The more companies that participate, the better, the data will be, and well informed. So I would suggest, more companies participate, so that way the data looks better, and we'll have more well-informed strategies that that'll work. So.
Thank you, Vipul. So just coming up, let me just have that clicker finish.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, is the point person inside the companies that are participating, is that the chief diversity officer who's then driving this in terms of disseminating participation amongst the employees to gather the data, or who's the touch person that you folks are working with inside each organization?
It's usually either the diversity officers, the chief diversity officers, executive advisors, Asian American ERG leaders. Those are the touch points. Yeah. So I just wanted to share with you that there's still time to participate in the 2017 survey, which closes January 18th. On this Thursday, we're doing a webinar to hear from Freddie Mac and what they're doing powerfully in the space to develop Asian American leaders at Freddie Mac. And I'll be moderating that. That'll be on Thursday on the 8th, so you can participate as that webinar. And then one other thing that I wanted to share with you is the awards process. As I said, it ends on the 18th for companies, and then we acknowledge the companies in June, May 24th and 25th at the Diversity Leadership Forum and Award Ceremony in New York. So thank you very much, and I will turn it over to Bruce Pickering. And thank you very much, Vipul.